So you need to come in, Darwin. I don't know why. Technical reasons. So jump into there. If you are, so part of that video and worksheet will give you a bit more detail, but as said, there are other videos and other workbooks and materials about oligopolies, and it might be something that really interests you, and it might be something that you think, hey, when I get to university, look, I don't know, maybe. Yep. All right. GWQZ3, top left-hand corner. GWQZ3. All right. There is a monopolistically competitive firm in the short run at an equilibrium. And where are they maximizing their profit? They're maximizing their profit where marginal cost intersects with marginal revenue. So the quantity they're going to produce, follow the dotted line up until we hit average revenue, because average revenue equals demand. All the way across, that's the price they're going to charge. This is a monopolistically competitive firm. All right. As we follow that line up, we hit here, which is average cost. Across to here, there's your average cost. So the difference between those, when you work out boxes, is going to be your supernormal profit. The same as we did before. Now, the year 13s asked a challenging question, which is good, because they're year 13, it's good for them to ask challenging questions. The challenging question is, why doesn't this intersect the axis? Now, in all the time I've been teaching, I've never actually been asked that before. And I know that's kind of unusual, and now I find that quite unusual, so that I tend to get asked exactly the same questions. So it does, you know, oh, that's a good question, right? Now, when you look at this, and you guys are amazing rock stars, okay, you will probably very quickly be able to figure out why, okay? Because what you're looking at isn't a diagram that's representing reality as such. It is a diagram that's representing a mathematical formula. Yeah. And so as we remember how we did our calculation for average revenue, what was the calculation? You found your average revenue by total revenue divided by quantity. Okay? So therefore, you're going to run into a problem if quantity is 0. Yeah. So the reason why it doesn't intersect with the price axis is because mathematically it can't. So it does look kind of weird floating in space. And it's something I've always, you know, had issues with. Floating in space. It doesn't look quite as neat as it should. Okay, Morag is now sending out the information that I've just told you about the exams. All right. Now, the idea is that because of the maths involved, it's not going to intersect with the axis. All right. So therefore, it's going to come to a point potentially, right? But it will be not quite at 0. One of the economics teachers that I know online, in any case, when he draws this, because I asked to make sure I was getting this right, when he does this, he says that you know, if you start from about 0.5, right, with regards to quantity. Okay, so you're not 0, you're 0.5. And it's somewhere to start from. But that's all it is, right? It is a purely mathematical response. Now, unfortunately, the reason why the question came up is because there's the models that I use, but if you go online and look up graphs for monopolistically competitive firms, you will find some where it appears as though it's intersecting with the axis. And likewise for a monopolist, because they're using the same structure. All right. more often than not, it shouldn't actually interact with the axis, but you are going to find a lot of images online where it does. Now, it's not necessarily saying they are wrong, yeah, but you do have to be a bit careful with your diagramming. Have you found one that does? Yeah. Yeah, so they would argue that that isn't 0, that it's 0.5. That's the argument, yeah? Right, so you do have to be a bit careful with that. Right, I don't think the examiner is going to be particularly picky about it. The reason why I'm bringing it up, and I've got a whole document that I'm writing about the maths of it, right, is because the year 13s brought it up and it was starting to confuse them. And so then I thought, well, I don't want it to confuse them and you. Okay, so I'll put this document together, I'll float it to you so that you can see the actual maths. Right, now we don't do actually a lot of the maths that's there. Okay, you'll be pleased to know that there is actually more maths in behind each of these models. Right? And if you're aware, there's a type of maths called differentiation, right? And a type of maths called algebra. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't teach those anymore. I don't know. Yeah, but that maths is what, in essence, is behind a lot of these models. Okay. So the more higher you go up in your learning of economics, the more likely it is that, yes, you will need to start doing those sorts of maths. Okay? However, these days, you've got computers and calculators and, you know, right? And there was poor me at university, right, without a computer, without a calculator, attempting to do ordinary least square regression models on pen and paper. Yeah, if you want to know what that looks like, it's in my thesis, which is in the cupboard. All right, show you. It's exciting. So, here we go. That sort of maths. It's fun. You can just see me at university going, what? Right? You end up with like an entire page of maths, a whole A4 page, and it's all to answer one equation. All right? You get that one equation and you go, oh. And then they invented software online that does it all for you. And so I said to the examiner, why on earth am I learning this pen and paper stuff when I can just put it in the computer and the computer does it for me? Ah, but how do you know the computer is doing it right? What if it spits out a number and it's wrong? You therefore must know the maths behind it in order to... Right. So that's a short-run equilibrium for a monopolistically competitive firm. We say it's a short run because in the longer run, what's going to end up happening is you're going to attract other competing firms into the market. Right? And because it's monopolistically competitive, it's not a monopoly, but it's also not necessarily 100% competitive. Not. There is elements of control that they have over the price. So when more competitors come in, your customers, right, are going to see that there are different prices between the different firms. They're going to see the difference. So then they're going to potentially go, well, I don't want to shop with you. I'm going to shop with the cheaper alternative. So you're going to expect to see potentially a decrease in demand in the long run. So therefore your profits in the long run for a monopolistically competitive firm, they're going to go, is the suggestion. So even though the trap for young players is it's got the word monopoly kind of written in it, right? But you have to link it to the idea of competition. So you have to make that leap. So that this is a firm that's not going to be able to necessarily keep its profits in the long run. Right, so what you need to do now is have a go yourself at drawing an imperfectly competitive firm. So a monopolistically competitive firm. There you go. Have a go. You guys will work out you've got about 3.5 terms of school left. Scary, isn't it? That in 1.5 terms, you'll be year 13. Scary, isn't it? That in 1.5 terms, you'll be year 13. They're not easy to draw because you're trying to do them on the computer, I know that. Let's have a go. Sorry, Hal. Yeah. Next year. Well, you're going to start the theory when we finish this. Right, so when we finish this unit, then we're starting macro, which is the first next commentary. But you need to have done some of the theory in order to be able to do the commentary. And it's always a guessing point in a way as to when to actually write it, because like with your micro, you know, you can hold off for as long as you can basically to write it so you've got more theory, or you can start looking early, which is what I recommend, so that you can find a decent article to write it out. And we'll get to that. But it is going to be macroeconomics as your next commentary, and then your last one will be international trade. Now, yes, you can do economic development, right? But the problem with that is the timing of trying to do that before December is probably not going to be, is possible, but very difficult. So it's much more likely that you'll do international trade. Under the old syllabus, so the very first one, well, not the very first one, the old one, you had to do 4 commentaries, 1 per topic, which was, to say that was stressful for the learners, something else, you know, trying to do that last commentary right at the end of the course. So thankfully the IB worked out that that wasn't the way to do it. Oh, this looks good, Joel. Yeah. Good. Giraffe, well done. Joels are on fire today. Both Joels. Yeah, and you've actually got your marginal revenue and average revenue looking more or less exactly like they should. Joel, that's good. Right. Remembering that, I know it's difficult because you're doing it on the computer, okay? But marginal revenue is going to fall at twice the rate, so it cuts halfway. Right? So it is a triangular shape. Right? I know, again, it's difficult. Okay? I'm not expecting you necessarily to do it exactly proportionally. You're doing it on the computer. However, in the exam, it's that sort of attention to detail that the examiner is going to see. Okay? And it's the game that you're playing, right? The game that you're playing is, how can I best demonstrate my knowledge? Well, the best way to do it is to be absolutely clinically precise in the drawing and explaining of your models, which you are doing well. Okay? And the examiner will then see it and have no doubt, yes, brilliant, rock star, let's give them a good mark. Okay? But if you give them room to doubt, then they will. Yeah. The rule that I learned when I was in school, is that marginal revenue falls at twice the rate of average revenue. Therefore, it cuts the quantity axis halfway to where the average revenue. Now, that's the rule that I learned. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be that principle. No. You should be illustrating where marginal cost cuts it at the lowest point. That's a real crucial thing. And again, that's very difficult to do on the computer, but it's also very difficult to do under the time pressure exam. So we're going to hope that in the exam you get it right, because again, that's how you do it. And it's the easiest way for an examiner to go, aha, this person knows it, this person doesn't. Right. Okay. Particularly if they're looking also at my age. Not necessarily. Yeah, well, as your marginal cost was slightly more angled, right, then it might be able to cut it here. Right? But the point with regards to average cost is where those, that's the equilibrium, right, the profit mix quantity. So where does that quantity at cost?
Where is average cost?
Yes. That's usually, that's going to be at an upward slope section on average cost.
So my intention is a bit higher. So
Yeah. Okay.
we need to make sure we know that it can't be past here, it can't be possible. It's like the think about it, the axis. Let further it is better rather than putting it aside. Cut here.
Yeah.
It would be like extended.
Are the equilibrium?
Yeah.
Are the equilibrium always leading to within us?
Yeah, that's something. But like, so better to always keep it in this way, right? Around the marker.
Theta is a relative constant. So this is cost. So your cost will be higher or lower. Okay. Yeah. Right, good work, team. Well done. And online as well. Oh, Bama, what went wrong there? Woo! All right, okay. Now, so as said, practicing these models is really important, and I can't stress that enough. It might be in the exam you don't ever have to draw a monopolistically competitive model. It's possible, right? You could choose a different question, yeah? However, it's also about the understanding and the ability to manipulate the model so that you can demonstrate your understanding. So as Sharaf was talking about with me, where does the cost curve sit? What if the cost curve was higher? What if the cost curve was lower? Yeah, what implication does that have? Right? Well, it's going to have an implication on the profit levels able to be earned, clearly. And each business is going to have different cost levels. And in one exam a long time ago, the question asked you, there was your monopolistically competitive model, and then they increased the costs. And you had to then redraw the model, but with a higher cost, and show the effects on the model. Yeah? Now that was a while back. I'm really suggesting that they will do that. Right. Good. Good work, Max. Well done. That's a good one too. All right. Now, so as said, in the long run, because we are competitive, because other firms are going to see, particularly if you're making a profit, there isn't the barriers to entry that there is for a monopolist. So they're going to arrive, and by nature of the model, some of your demand is going to disappear. Because they're going to come into the market, there's going to be differences between the different firms based on price potentially, that you're going to see that and go for the cheaper option. So therefore your profits will be taken away, eaten away, reduced, decreased, and maybe that your profits go all the way down to normal. Okay, so the example you've got there is, what type of profit is it? Normal profits. So you can screen grab that if you wish, put it into your notes, because that's a monopolistically competitive firm earning normal profits. There was a joke online, when was it? Yesterday? Because we're doing a lot more of this hybrid learning and online learning, and in Google there's, little buttons that you can push, and there's one button in, I think it's Meet, yes, that says raise hand, right? And the idea is that's supposed to get the teacher's attention. I don't know if it does or not, I really don't, right? But there's a button there that says raise hand. And so the joke online was that one of the learners had pushed the raise hand button, and so the teacher stopped what they were doing and said, okay, oh, do you have a question, whatever their name was? And they said, no, I'm just stretching. Yeah. Electronically stretching. Oh, I heard another joke I quite liked the other day. I thought I'd run it by you, see if you like this one. I come from a family of failed circus performers. I've got 2 half-sisters. No, come from a family of failed magicians. I've got 2 half-sisters. I quite like that joke. That one appealed to me then. Yeah. My friends often ask me why it is I'm training rabbits to stand on my shoulders with their ears going up and down. Well, I say friends. I quite like that one too. Neither of them are my jokes, by the way. I've just stolen them. But I quite like. So what sorts of things could we expect an examiner to talk about? Well, there's potentially lots. Okay? Thinking about the relationship between the curves. This is a very typical question. It's gone back years and years and years. What is the relationship between the marginal cost curve and average cost curve of a perfectly competitive firm in the short run? All right? So the big takeaway from that is about the idea of the marginal cost curve intersecting the average cost curve at the lowest point, at the minimum. And why does it do that? What is happening? And you did an exercise for me a while back where you wrote about that very thing. Some of you did it really well. Defining the law of diminishing returns and assessing the likelihood that it will be experienced by a firm producing a product in a consumer good market. Woo! What a question. Now, that is an evaluative question. It's up to 15 marks. Far too challenging a question, to be perfectly fair. I would really hope the examiner would not put that in. Very first thing, though, is they're asking you to define the law of diminishing marginal returns. Done. All right? That should be bread and butter stuff, definitions. You know them all. You've got the terminology down. You can recite all of the formulas and equations. You know it all with regards to the terms. So you just put the law in. Bang, done. Just as if I was to quiz you on what does ceteris paribus mean, you'd all instantly be able to tell me. Yeah? What does nudge theory do? You'd all be able to tell me. Yeah? So it's that sort of reaction. Yeah? So you're defining the law of diminishing returns. Then it's assess the likelihood. So you're going to be giving point and counterpoint. It will in this case, maybe it won't in that. Right? The firm is producing a product in a consumer good market, so you're not talking about capital goods. You're talking specifically about consumer goods, and there's a reason why that is. Right? Okay, so the point being the difference between consumer goods and capital goods. Okay, and are they the same with regards to the idea of diminishing returns? Right? You've also got to consider short and long run and those other sorts of ideas as well. When does diminishing returns occur? That's a huge topic to do. Right? It's a monster essay, that one. Right? Plus, you will be expected to try and come up with some examples, right, within those to back up your case. Now, has Sariha arrived? You here, Sariha? Hello, Sariha, how are you? You there? You're a bit late to the meet there, Sariha. Same. Now. All right, so I get to push the go button on that, which is good. Let's try and push the go button on that. Doesn't seem to be going. There we go. All right. At what level of output should a firm produce to maximize its total profits? Your profit maximizing rule. Right? What quantity is it that will give you the maximum level of profits? But you're also needing to explain, I know it says at what, so in theory you'd say at this one, right? But they're wanting you to explain why that is the actual reason. With a graph, with a model. Right? Whatever the type of market structure, profit max will be the only goal of firms. Discuss. Okay. So again, it's a discuss. So you're going to have points and counterpoints. All right. Now, we do assume that for the majority of cases, profit maximization is their goal. But we do readily admit that quite often, for businesses, profit maximization might not be their goal. For example, can they have a profit maximizing goal if they're making a loss? What do you think? Yeah. So what would their goal possibly be? Their goal might be to break even, maybe. Maybe normal profit. Yeah. Yes. So what would then they be thinking? They've got a loss. They're making a loss. What are they wanting to be as small as they could possibly get it? Give you a hint. It's a 4-letter word beginning with L. 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 Sorry for my Kiwiisms getting you confused. Yes, loss. Now, they're wanting to make the loss as small as they can. If they're making a loss, their objective isn't going to be necessarily profit maximization. Although, yeah, we're going to make an argument about that in just a second. Right? Their objective is to make their loss as small as it can be. So their objective is loss minimization. Now, when you do the maths on that, right, you're looking for the same equation as you would if you were looking for profit maximization. You're looking at the same numbers essentially, it's just that it's a loss. So you're just wanting the negative value, so to speak, to be the smallest it can possibly be. So therefore, in a sense, profit maximization is the same as loss minimization, which is what Fatima was suggesting. But that's a good critique of that. Other businesses, what if the business is brand new? Never been there before. Are they going to have profit maximization as their goal? Probably not. What other goals could they have? What do you want to do? If you're a brand new business, what's your number one goal? What do you think? Maybe customer loyalty. What else could it be? Come on, I've got business students in the room. Brand new business. Yes, thank you. Surviving. If you're a brand new business, and I should have maybe added in a competitive market. Yes. Surviving. So maybe survival might be the number one goal that you have. Yeah? What if your business is all about doing things for the community? Will you have profit maximization as a goal then? No, you might have community service or maximizing social welfare or, yeah? Right. In New Zealand, in business, we used to talk about something called a 3-legged dog approach or 3-legged stool, okay? A stool seat with 3 legs, yeah, right? And the idea is that profit maximization was one objective, okay? But they would have 2 others that they would add. And one of those would also be a social-based objective. The other objective would be an environmental-based objective. Right? So the social one would be about employment and employing people or paying good wages or something about health and safety of staff, something along those lines. And then environmental issues, environmental concerns would be part of that third, so then it becomes a 3-legged stool. So the idea being is that in modern thinking, having one corporate objective doesn't really fit. Yeah? You wouldn't expect modern businesses to have just one objective. But from a theoretical point of view, when we're analyzing businesses, the easiest assumption to make is that all businesses have profit maximization as their goal. So that's what we say. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Right. We had one business in New Zealand for business learners. Right, this is probably more interesting to you. It was called Hubbard's Food. It is called Hubbard's Food. Still exists. And the guy who ran it, he was a bit unusual, got to say. They manufactured, but he was a nice guy. They manufactured breakfast cereals, and quite unusual breakfast cereals for children. Yeah, one of their most favorite. Yes, breakfast cereals was called Bugs and Mud. Remember, this is designed for children, so it's basically chocolate cereal that resembled worms and insects and other things, and kids loved it. Brilliant, Bugs and Mud cereal. And it was really, it was a very popular company, and it worked in a place in New Zealand where unemployment was quite high, where skill levels tended to be quite low, where income levels were very low. So this particular boss decided to do something a bit different. Rather than pay really high wages, he would pay low wages, as low as he could get them. So he would pay exactly the minimum wage. Why do you think he decided to do that? What was his objective behind doing that? To be able to employ more people, exactly. His social goal for his business was, and it was written into their objective, company corporate objective, was to be able to employ as many people as he could. So they had thousands of workers. I think hundreds of workers, probably up to 1,000. Right, in these factories making breakfast cereal just down the road from where I used to live. All right. Also, he had a different approach to how to celebrate success. Okay. So rather than give out corporate bonuses to the managers, he thought social-wise, different objective. Right, so he thought that because a lot of the people who worked in his business, because it's New Zealand, okay, they actually were born in an island off of New Zealand and then moved to New Zealand in order to earn money, and then they were sending a lot of that money back home. Right, so they were migrant workers but lived in New Zealand. Yeah, so he knew that. So he knew that a lot of their families were still back in the islands. So rather than paying corporate bonuses and other things to the managers, instead what he did, and this is absolutely true, not word of a lie, he flew the entire staff, all of them, back to the islands where they were born and their families are, and then he and the managers went to every single worker's house to personally meet and talk with the family of each and every individual worker and say thank you and well done, and right, share Christmas gifts with them and stuff like that, which is an incredible thing to do when you consider how expensive that would have been. I mean, I know it's just one island to the next, right? But still, it was up to 1,000 people, flights, everything. So yes, and it talks about the type of market structure. So monopolists, think about them, right? Are they going to have profit maximization as their objective? Potentially, yes. But what if they're a natural monopolist? Yeah. What if they are producing a product that is essential to the economy, water, power, the internet, I don't know, Maybe then they've got that objective, that societal objective about producing water or producing power and enough of it, maybe. So it's a point and counterpoint. Yes, a monopolist is more likely to, but if it's a natural monopolist, maybe not. Now, we also need to remind ourselves of the idea of, allocative efficiency. Because now that we've got these structures built, we need to think about how do they all of them, interact with the idea of allocative efficiency. Are they allocatively efficient? Are they productively efficient? Why and why not? Where does the business have to operate in order for it to be considered to be allocatively efficient? Where supply equals demand. So we know that a perfectly competitive firm operates where supply is equal to demand. So therefore, we would suggest, in theory, that it is allocatively efficient. So every other model, therefore, isn't allocatively efficient because they're not operating where supply equals demand. So you're going to have areas of allocative inefficiency. You're going to have deadweight loss. You need to identify the arrow pointing towards the equilibrium. Supply equals demand. Productively efficient, what has to happen in order for them to be productively efficient? So I didn't quite hear that one. No, just productively efficient. What does it mean? That's more allocatively efficient. I'm just thinking productively efficient. That's the one, producing at the lowest cost. So what curve are we thinking about? Particular. Well, they're in there. Average cost, yeah. Your average of your total costs, all right? So you're thinking that minimum point, the technical optimum that we talked about. So if you're there, then you should be productively efficient. And if we look at our models, what we're going to notice is that quite a number of them aren't even productively efficient. I mean, if we have a look back. Sorry, I'm jumping backwards. There's the lowest point. There's supply equals demand. So, no. Yeah. What about if they're making a profit? Let's see. Okay, so they're making a profit. This is their profit maximization here. Supernormal profits, supply, demand, here. So there's your triangle pointing. Right, deadweight loss. Productively efficient, well, not far off. But they're not. Now, when we talk about these, remember we've said that the government can regulate these industries. Yeah? The government can force them to produce here. Right? P equals AC. They can produce here. The government could force them to produce here. P equals MC. By law. It's going to have an effect. Yeah? Might make them make a loss. May not be happy. Now, one of my recommendationings, which you've possibly already done or already got, is to actually have a Google Doc that frames all of the structures together in like a summary form. Right? So what happens to all of the structures, all of the features, characteristics, if you will, of them all, maybe a little snapshot of the models, okay? Short run and long run, discussing the level of market power within each of them, discussing allocative efficiency, discussing productive efficiency, and it's all next to, so like one strip of the table, if you will, one was our row, yeah? Yeah, that's what you did in maths, isn't it? Everybody was Catholic in maths, learning about tables, Roman Catholic. No? Rows and columns, Roman Catholics. The number of firms. What about economies of scale? Is it possible for a perfectly competitive firm to earn economies of scale? They're small. Yeah. So, no. The entry and exit, is it free? So there's characteristics. Are there barriers? The size of the firms? What level of differentiation is there? Now, in the old syllabus, we also talked about something called price discrimination, and we talked about the different levels of price discrimination. So we talk about level 1, level 2, and level 3, yes, price discrimination. That's not in your syllabus anymore. Okay? It is still, however, what these structures or some of the structures are able to do. Okay? They are able to use the information available to split the market up into different market segments, and thereby discriminating what price they're charging each segment. And the more segments you're able to produce, the more range of prices you're able to produce, therefore the closer you can get to basically perfectly pricing a market. Because, charging everybody a different price, essentially. But you see price discrimination all the time. Anytime you go on a bus and you get a cheaper fare because you're a student, you're a market segment. Or go to the movies and you get a student price. I don't know. Right? That sort of idea, or on-peak, off-peak telephone calls. That's all about price discrimination, or on-peak, off-peak aeroplane flights. And again, dependent on how much information they have, and we give them more information all the time, they're more able to split us all up and charge different prices for different things. Right. Now, I have included extra work in there as well as extra revision materials into the classroom and into the site. That one is Mr. Clifford going through monopolistic competition. Now, the best way to review these videos is to have a pause button on them. And you watch the video and then you hit pause and you make notes. All right? Now, I know that's not what you traditionally do when you watch a video and you sit there and just watch the thing. Yeah. But unless you've got perfect recall, and I don't know that you have, just sitting watching a video is probably not going to help you very much. But if you're able to pause the video and make notes on what you've seen, that could be a good revision strategy, particularly if it's a concept that you are weaker in or needing extra support in, etc. That's also, yeah, I'll put the price discrimination bit in there. It's not in your syllabus anymore. It's in the slides. If you're wanting to investigate that, again, it's that point of difference sort of idea. Then you can click on that and go through all of that theory there about price discrimination. Plus, in the site, there's probably a whole bunch of slides or worksheets about price discrimination potentially as well. I try not to put too much into the sites because I've got this much. My very first year here, I created a site and I thought I'll put everything in it. So I did. And the students were going, where was the? No, did not work. It was not efficient. So having the approach that I have now with the site per topic is much more efficient. So much more pleased with that. But yeah, so that's the way to watch those videos. Whether they're Mr. Clifford videos, Econ plus DAL videos, or Marginal Revolution University, MRU videos, any of those, pause, make notes. Yeah, the biggest mistake you can make with those is just sitting there, as I said, watching them and thinking that it's just going to absorb into your brain. It's not. Okay, all right. You might remember one or two bits of them, but, yeah. And Mr. Clifford also has promoting perhaps, yeah, but he also sells revision packs. Okay, you can buy them online, and they are slide-based, but also PDF-based, and you then write answers into them. Now, a lot of the work he does is A-level based, so you do have to be a bit wary about that. But they are very good, right? Econ plus DAL as well, more or less A-level based, but he does do some very good, very well broken down IB videos too. The reason why I'm saying that now is because I'm getting closer and closer, as you are, to April, to the mid-course, And every year I ask learners about their revision strategies for their exams. And I did have a learner about 2 years ago, for the mid-course exams, who the only revision that they did was the watching of the videos. That's it. And then they wondered why they didn't do so well in the mid-course exam, because they weren't practicing writing, they weren't applying what they learned, they weren't even remembering what they'd seen. Right? So I have assigned you a couple of videos, yes, more in depth on oligopolies and game theory, and reminding you about profit maximization and how it all works. But I've attached worksheets to each one so that you actually answer the question. So the best way to do that, again, pause the video, answer the question. Pause the video, answer the question. Much faster than watching the, oh, what was it? Right? Okay. Now, we need to perhaps have a bit of a summary. What are the features of an oligopolist? What is it? What makes it different? Are there many? Few, more than one? Yeah. What's the smallest number that there can possibly be? 2. Well done. So you can have an oligopoly of 2, and that's called a duopoly, right? Believe it or not. Okay. But oligopolies tend to have the vague term of a few, which does sound like somebody sneezing, right? A few, right? A few large firms. Why do the firms have to be large? Yeah, because they got market power. They're dominating. Yes, they're able to control what? Right. Price. Right. And it is entirely possible that they might work together. What do we call it if an oligopolist works with other oligopolies? Firms in an oligopoly work together. Collusion, yeah. And there's 2 types of collusion. What were the 2 types of collusion? One starts with the letter I, the other starts with the letter E. Yes, explicit. And implicit, yeah, the opposite. Well done. All right, so one is formal and contractual, and the other is just not. All right, price leadership based, or right, maybe coordinated, just not written down. What was there's a C word to describe a formal, collusive oligopoly. Here's a C. Cartel, well done. And pretty much the only example I can think of to give you is OPEC, O-P-E-C. You might be able to investigate and find others, but that's pretty much the only one that I know of. Right? And it's a classic example which gets used. So a collusive oligopoly is one that works together. In your syllabus, interestingly enough, they talk now about, they kind of made it a bit of a theme, interdependence. So with regards to interdependence, what are they referring to with oligopolies? Yes, you can say collusion, but something else. I'll give you a hint, it's actually on the slide. Concentration ratio, no, that's just you in class. You're thinking, which is good. Very simple, you're going to kick yourself for not knowing it. Oh, you're the closest so far. What was the term that we use? Game theory, thank you, yeah! So when we're thinking interdependence, yes, you can think about price leadership, you can think about collusions, right? You can think about all of those, but also in your syllabus is the idea of game theory. Now we looked at game theory, you had an example about the prisoner's dilemma, you're discussing the idea that it's about strategic thinking, right? Acting or reading and reacting what happens with regards to other businesses and their decisions, right? And part of the reason why I've assigned you that video with the worksheet is to give you a bit more thought about that whole idea. Please do that. I know you've got time to do it. I've set the deadline way out. I think so. I learned one the other day. Is there a guy called Parker? I want to say Parker. And then I think maybe I'm thinking Parker because of the pen. In any case. There's something called Parker's Law or Parker's Rule or some such thing. I think it's Parker. And the idea is that your work expands to the time that you give it. If I give a dead or some such thing, I think it's Parker. And the idea is that your work expands to the time that you give it. So if I give you a deadline of a week, you will take a week to do the work. If I give you 2 weeks, you'll take 2 weeks to do the work. Yeah. That we haven't yet broke out of the habit of, I want to do this now and finish it, right? Then I've done it early, yeah? It's always a surprise to me because, sorry, I'm jumping tracks several times here. In ManageBack, it'll actually tell you if you submit things early, right? And then it will tell you if you submit it late, and it comes up and it's early. It's early, what? Okay, any case. So yes, I've given you an extended deadline for that. It's not a big stress, it's a revision. It will give you a bit more depth into understanding profit maximization and oligopolies. We're going to finish up there for the day. Please do pink stuff for the desks, blue stuff for your hands. You're going to be able to have a break, a mental break, not a breakdown, before your next lesson. Otherwise, as we say in the land of my birthday, which means goodbye for now. Bye, team. Thank you.
It's time.
Thank you. See you. Thank you, Sariha. You can leave the meet now, Sariha.
I can see the tables.
Thank you. See you.